It's a piece of art. It's a toy. It's a charcoal lighter. Actually, it's all the above. And it's a creation of Dan Rosenberg. Welcome to the 13th program in this Art in Arlington series, and we visit again with Dan, who was the subject of the 10th program in this series. We pick up on our conversation talking about his creation of a sculpture race or an entry in the sculpture race that was composed of these large shapes. Well, Dan also created much smaller versions of these shapes, and they have a big appeal to someone like me, who is a bit of a minimalist and someone into tessellations and space filling objects. And you'll also see that they have an appeal to a large range of people, and I hope you will find them appealing and interesting and thought-provoking and stimulating and all that stuff. So as always, I thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy. So, my dear Mr. Rosenberg, we're back. And when we left last time, you were telling us about the sculpture race and which you won, and the how you created it. And so now I think you're going to show us some of the elements that you used to create. Of course, they're smaller, but some other art that you've been working on.
So recently we acquired a laser cutter, which has a bed of about 18 by 30 inches, and it uses carbon dioxide lasers and a plotter table, an XY table, to turn lines from a computer file into cut objects. And the simplest and cheapest medium is cardboard, and I got hooked. So this is I cut these today. These are my shapes, and there are squares, 2 different sizes.
I can smell them.
Yeah. Some of them have holes. I've been experimenting with different, being able to do different things with these. But this is my set. These are my atoms, and there's a 3-inch square, a 2-inch square, a 3-inch triangle, and a 2-inch triangle, and the slots are there so that the cardboard pieces will slip together easily, but then grip. So once you put them together, they hold themselves together just by the pressure of the corrugated cardboard being compressed by the slot.
Right.
So this came out of a course I took called How to Make Almost Anything. This is the week 2 homework project, is to make a press fit kit. And when I took the course, I didn't make this. The year after, last year, I was helping assist with the course, and as part of that, I decided to make this kit. So I drew up the shapes in a computer program called Antimony, imported them into our draw program that is connected to the laser cutter, and started cutting out sheets of cardboard. And just like atoms, when they go together, just a few things go together in millions of different possible ways.
Right.
And so my first set of pieces were these, and I'm going to reach over and grab all 4. So when you have four things that can go together, you get 16 pairwise combinations. So this is the square with small triangles, the big square with small triangles, big square with small squares, big square with big triangles, and big square with big squares. And I stacked them up and made a little tower. And then on with big triangle, big squares, and all the way to big triangle with little triangles. And those stack up. The same set with small triangles, and the same set with small squares, and then the same set with small triangles. And so these are the 16 possible combinations. I'm like kind of a math nerd about this, and really enjoy being able to have a complete set of these combinations. But this is sort of just an extension of combinations. There's sort of math to it, but it wasn't exactly art. What I discovered is that these pieces go together in all kinds of different ways, and so you can put them together so that triangles are mated with squares which extend into triangles, and then all of a sudden, from just three-sided figures and four-sided figures, we come up with a three-dimensional shape that's a five-sided figure. And that makes a nice little candy bowl. Or is it the base for a lunar excursion module? So this is my my homebrew cardboard Lego set. The idea that you can take triangles and squares and put them together into three-dimensional shapes that then take on different symmetries led me to make this is actually a pair of platonic solids. They're complementary. One is a dodecahedron, which is made of all pentagons, and so that's the outer shape. And then the inner shape is an icosahedron, which is made of 20 triangles. And the triangles are held together by other triangles, and the whole thing is glued into a final shape that then is strong enough to, throw around. And then those combinations go together with other shapes. So the other thing with the other platonic solid that you can make is a square octahedron. So there's 8-sided triangular on the inside, and then a cube formed by the outside. And when four of these cube octahedrons go together with one of the dodecahedron icosahedrons, the entire form itself is the simplest platonic solid, which is a tetrahedron. So it's form made of 4 triangular faces. And so just by cutting triangular pieces of cardboard and gluing them together, I was able to make all of the platonic solids in one little shape, one little form, and and it just keeps on growing.
Yeah, they're really quite beautiful.
So once I had a good handle on just making shapes, I started to think of what I wanted to say artistically with these shapes, and this is a piece called "Ready to Burn." It was in the Small Works show at the Arlington Center for the Arts, and it's just cardboard and strike anywhere matches, and it's literally and figuratively ready to burn. If you feel like you have too much art in the house, take it out to the grill, light it up, and it becomes ephemeral.
Cool.
Another series of shapes.
Actually, before you go out,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the whole lighting the fire. Have you done that?
I have. In fact, so when I took the course as a student,
Yeah.
and this was our project, I made, instead of shapes, I made rectangular tickets out of cardboard, rectangular shapes out of cardboard with a slot and a tab, so that they could slot and tab together. And on the inside of the rectangle, I put about 100 very thin cuts, so that the inside of the shape consisted of basically paper confetti.
Yeah.
And then when 3 of those were slotted and together, and the confetti fingers were curled up into a sort of spiral shape, it would fit right on the inside of a charcoal chimney. So what you use to light the charcoal. Instead of a crumpled up piece of newspaper, I would put this
Right.
structured cardboard, and a single match would light this confetti on the inside, and it would burn very quickly, and because of the shape, it would form a
Right.
vortex of flame,
Right.
and it would light the charcoal in a minute. Why can't you buy this at Stop and Shop? I'm getting on that. That's
No, there you go.
There you go.
Well, I was, and you can
yeah.
answer my question.
So this was my stab at actual geometric forms rather than just making a fire starter. But by putting them together in certain ways, you can also make what would be interesting fire starters. Of course, once I started turning the triangles and squares into larger shapes, I got to the point where the triangles and squares were not enough, and I needed to cut hexagonal pieces and pentagonal pieces, and these also go together with slots, but allow for a little bit more creativity. So here we have a turtle on a lily pad.
Looks more like Mars rover to me.
That it could be too. The slots are there to go. So by putting slot to slot, you have one set of shapes, but they're not constrained. The slot, you can put a cardboard side into the slot and it will also hold. So in this case, I used triangles to make a sort of triangles and squares to make a sort of snowflake design. And speaking of snowflakes, by using the laser cutter to make even more intricate patterns, I was able to cut out a six-sided six-sided figure that sort of looks like a snowflake, and it goes together with these pentagons and squares, and I have a kit that makes a dodecahedron. Half of the pieces are this snowflake cut out, and then half of the pieces have a small hole that is just the right size to put an LED into, and so it can become a Christmas themed table decoration where light comes from the base, shines through the cutouts, and projects onto the ceiling.
Cool.
So
And
I will have these at the Open Studios.
okay, great,
Yeah.
great. And there's a very good chance that this video will be out by then. And it's interesting that you have a 5-fold pattern and a 6-fold pattern, and you would think that'd be hard to put those together, but of course I guess that breaks down to 3-fold symmetry and mirror symmetry. And so interesting.
Right.
Kind
So
of
going from 2 dimensions up to 3, all of a sudden the angles are no longer constrained to a plane, and you get much more interesting possibilities,
right.
shapes. It can become by gluing. So this is now, it's no longer held together just by friction, but with glue and weld bond, the glue that Daniel uses. It grabs fast and it dries clear. Even though it looks like Elmer's glue, it seems to be better than that.
Is it animal safe?
I
don't know.
Don't know. No animals were harmed in the making of this cardboard. And so all of a sudden, rather than sort of close, dense shapes, I'm able to sort of expand out into space with these more spider-like. This definitely has echoes of my wire spiders, where the shape is open and moving.
Right. Now it might be an artifact of the monitor that I'm looking at now, but I'm seeing some color on that. I know there's no color on it, but have you thought about adding color to this or using reflective mylar?
I have, and right now I'm about 6 months into working with this material, and right now my goal is to see how far I can take it,
right.
just as beige
right.
cardboard.
Yeah.
There's nothing about it but its shape.
Right.
And that's I'm trying to wring that
right.
Out of the material.
Right.
Let's see. So the beautiful part of working from a digital file is that it scales, and so I can take the same shape and expand it to 18 inches across,
right.
which is the largest size that the laser cutter bed will handle, and that's what I made the sculpture that I called hatching from. It's a truncated icosahedron, which is also a soccer. It's the shape of a soccer ball,
Right.
with panels that are left out. Some of the panels are inverted. What I realized is that a geometric form is mathematical, but by starting with that geometric form and leaving things out and inverting other things, all of a sudden it's no longer strictly mathematical. There's an element of emotion and whimsy in there, and that was a really sweet discovery where, you know, not just math but art. When you put together hexagons and pentagons, the angles are no longer the angles of a triangle or a square. The angles are start to be 118 degrees or 138 degrees. And in order to put these things together accurately, I had to cut connector pieces that would maintain those angles between the shapes, and that worked out very well for the larger sculptures. But it also gave me an interesting extension where all of a sudden I could just take the connectors and put them together. And lo and behold, when you take connectors and put them together, you get rings.
Huh.
And so I made the ring, and I thought, well, it's a crown. And then once you have a crown with other shapes, you can decorate it. So now I have a crown with spikes. Why stop there? The spikes can have spikes.
Well,
And now I am Prince of the Nerds.
I think actually you also have a Halloween costume going there.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So it takes us almost full circle back with your spider wire.
So those are my first crowns, of course, were symmetrical because I only had one connector. But I realized that I needed to have a couple of different forms of connectors because I didn't want them just to be geometrical. I wanted to have larger or sleeker pieces. So I discovered that I could put them together large and small, and rather than just round crowns, I was able to make ovals, and now I can make something that perfectly matches the shape of my head.
Right.
And, you know,
Cool.
hovers down around my ears.
Right.
So yeah, so this is this was a happy accident, and it's something that I find when I work with just about any medium, it almost always exceeds my expectations for what I can do with it, and that's really rewarding. The sculpture race was a blast. I put together my cardboard sculpture. That took me about half the time.
Right.
I put together a bicycle cart, which we have pictures of, out of bicycle wheels from my shed, crutches
Right.
that I recycled that held them, clamps and bars, and the whole thing is a three-wheeled platform vehicle that I laced my 6-foot sculpture too, and raced it in Cambridge in June. We'll take a look at the trophy, but that was only so. Yeah, I want a sculpture raise. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. But the really awesome thing that came out of that was I brought bags of little cardboard bits. I threw down a rug by the river, and I put plastic bins with these shapes in them, and invited people to come and do a make and take. You know, put it together, whatever you make, take it with you. And it was from 12 o'clock to 6 p.m. It was pretty much packed. I gave away hundreds and hundreds of little cardboard pieces. Kids and couples. That was my demographic. Little kids would run up and they would immediately start putting it together. They knew exactly what they wanted to make, and they made it. Couples would sit down and they would work off of each other. And so that was really, it was just a wonderful time.
Yeah, interesting.
Playing with, and they were playing with toys that I made.
Right.
And they were making art with a construction kit that was so simple that it's like a throwaway example.
Right.
And in fact, once you get your hands on them, you find that you can very easily create. And I think you noticed
right.
that when I opened up this bag, it has the smell of a campfire.
Right.
And so the laser cutter both makes shapes easily, fairly quickly, but it also gives them this wonderful sort of physical presence where you feel it and you smell it, and yeah. So your question before, was I thinking of making these, you know, of giving them color? Maybe eventually, but right now I feel like I'm hitting I'm hitting the senses. I've got some.
So well, the viewers don't know that they have been exposed to you by virtue of the music that I play at the beginning and the end of these segments.
Data Redux Triage.
Yeah, and Beat Redux Triage.
Yep.
So are you making music these days? Any plans to do so?
So I have mostly been just keeping my fingers busy with the guitar, and at some point I kept my my box of synthesizers. So at some point.
Yeah, well,
we will dive back into that.
Yeah, well, pre-neo minimalism has now kind of become, EDM. I won't say
electronic dance music.
Yeah,
that's right.
I won't say that it's it was a precursor. Right. We'll just leave it at that, because one of the members is going to remain mysterious for a little while, but eventually that person may make themselves known, and there might be a little discussion about BRT and what it was aiming for and what it might do. So right. Thank you very much, Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you.
I learned a lot, as I thought I would. So have a good day.
Yep.